Good afternoon. My name is Hewitt Shaw. I'm the immediate past president of the City Club Board of Directors, and I'm pleased to welcome you all today to our 2014 County Executive Democratic Primary Debate. We are delighted to have at our podium today all of the candidates vying to be the Democratic candidate to run against Jack Schron in the fall election, in the general election in the fall. The City Club is the oldest continuous free speech forum in the country. One of the many great traditions of this club is to sponsor political debates each election cycle, giving the candidates an opportunity to have their voice be heard by the community, and just as importantly, to give folks at our forum an opportunity to ask questions directly to the candidates. That tradition continues today at this Democratic primary debate that we're about to have. The primary election will be held on May 6th, and early primary voting began today. If you haven't registered, today is your last day to register before the primary. We're looking forward to a robust debate on the issues, and I'd like to now turn the program over to our moderator, Rick Jackson. Rick is the host of the morning edition for 90.3 WCPN ideastream, and the host of Ideas and News Depth, which airs on WVIZ PBS. Rick?
Thank you, Hewitt. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm actually pretty glad to be doing this today. Glad to be here with all of you, moderating this debate amongst all the candidates vying to be the Democratic candidate for the Cuyahoga County Executive in the upcoming November 2014 election. And welcome to those of you listening on the radio as well. This has the potential to be very enlightening, as it's likely the only time all six will be together. You here and those listening have the unique opportunity to hear their dialogue side by side. This debate will be roughly 1 hour long. I'll ask the candidates questions for the first half of the program. We'll turn to you, the audience here at the City Club, for the traditional City Club questions and answers in the second half of the program, and you know that's when the fun begins, right? We will then give each of the candidates an opportunity to answer a final question to close out the debate. We're pleased to welcome this excellent audience here today. I know many of you support one or other of these candidates. We appreciate your giving everyone a chance to be heard by holding applause. To begin, I'll ask each candidate an opening question. Each candidate in this round only will have 2 minutes to respond to that question, during which they may add other opening comments if they so choose. After the first question, I will provide more questions. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond. There may be follow-up questions asked. Candidates in that case would have 30 seconds to respond to a follow-up. The order of the first question was determined by draw a few minutes ago. Sheriff Reid will be going first. Sir, clearly the effort to improve law enforcement is one of your key topics. What are your thoughts on the county now taking over the jail in Euclid, and talk that the expansion could include Cleveland, perhaps other jails here? Is this good for Cuyahoga County, and why? You have 2 minutes, and you may add other thoughts to this question.
As county sheriff, I was approached actually in May of 2010 from then Safety Director Marty Flask to look at the issue in reference to combining the jails. One, to answer the question directly, it's a good thing. We did the numbers. We did it over a 6-month to a year period of time. We believe right now the operation in Cleveland costs about $15 million. With the county sheriffs taking over the operation, we'll reduce that to about $10 or $9 million, a savings per year of about $6 million. But I think what's even more important is the services that the Cuyahoga County Jail can give to prisoners throughout the county. It's not that your sheriff was getting soft, but at the end of the day, we have a full service medical facility, $10.5 million that we spend a year for doctors, 40 full-time nurses. We have the ability to take care of prisoners. And, you know, to expand it throughout Cuyahoga County, not only to the city of Cleveland, the city of Euclid, not only is it good for one, good for the community, two, good for Cleveland police officers who then will be able to drop prisoners off, will be able to get back out on the street in an expeditious manner, where today, you know, they struggle to drop prisoners off, get them booked in. This central booking concept is smart. And we started it, as I said, almost 4 years ago. I'm very pleased to see that it's coming to fruition. Finally, the issues in reference to the treatment of prisoners. It's a big deal. and not only the issue of the treating of prisoners and the sensitive issues that go along with that, it's also the litigation that follows sometimes when you don't treat them correctly. So at the end of the day, working with the city of Cleveland on this project as I had, and I started almost 4 years ago to see it come to fruition, is a great thing.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Now I have opening remarks and a question and answer from Senator Shirley Smith. You've repeatedly emphasized what you term the need to strengthen the health, human, and social services provided to the residents of this county. Big job. So where would you start if elected? From where else does funding have to come? Would something have to be sacrificed in the budget to make space for HHS?
Thanks for that question, Rick. But let me first begin by telling you why I am running for county executive. I am running for county executive because I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference in people's lives. And the reason I say that is because I can, and I already have. I have been very successful in the challenging and partisan environment that I work in Columbus. I have made a difference already in people's lives. I have been more successful than any other Democratic legislator in this county. I have been very successful. My legislation has opened up doors for the unemployed, the disadvantaged unemployed. My legislation has opened up doors for women in terms of making sure that there are initiatives for them to do research and development on their health. My legislation has also secured funding for the mentally challenged people so that they can live in adult care facilities. My legislation has also made sure that small businesses secure funding for bonding. They'd be able to be bonded. And not only that, I, as a single mom, will lift up the lives for other single women. I will also make sure that I speak out for women who work on the same jobs as men but don't get as much pay. I will make sure that I speak up for those women whose rights are being taken away and also reproductive rights are being taken away. I have to applaud women like Ellen Conley and Beth Mooney, who even though they've progressed, there's still a long way to go. When women make 77 cents to a man's dollar, that means that there still needs to be change. And I want to make that change, and I will make that change.
Thank you, Senator. Now I have opening remarks from Tim Russo. Question: you've made defeat of the so-called syntax a centerpiece of your campaign. Tell me in an elevator talk, if you would, why I shouldn't vote to support something that personally I've used many times and it won't cost me a cent.
First, I'd like to thank the City Club for making sure that all of the candidates for county executive are here at this debate. I just wanted to talk a little bit about where I come from. I was born in Slavic Village. We moved out to Old Brooklyn when I was 4, out to Middleburg Heights when I was 12, and graduated from Berea High School in 1985, Cleveland State, 1989, Case Western Law School, 1994. From there, I went and worked for Democrats up and down the ticket and took that experience abroad to work in developing democracies in the former Soviet Union, helping them work through their democratic self-governance experiments. When I came back here and the new county government was formed, I decided to run for county council in 2010 in District 7. The reason I'm running today is the same reason I ran last time. I would like us to govern ourselves and for money to stop governing us. The syntax is the perfect example of money governing us. If I went to county council tomorrow and asked for 1 nickel, they would put a microscope on my bank account. When 3 billionaires go to county council, no questions asked. Here, we'll put Art Modell's Chumps deal back on the ballot for all of us to rubber stamp a deal that Art Modell negotiated for himself. It's ancient history. It doesn't work. We're still paying for this thing. We were told this would pay for 3 buildings. We're still paying on the buildings. It also happens to be an immoral policy. My mother didn't teach me to take money from poor people and give it to rich people. In fact, she taught me to do the exact opposite. It's wrong, and it doesn't work, and it's a chumps deal, and it's Art Modell's chumps deal. So I would rather not perpetuate Art Modell's legacy in this town. That's why I'm against the syntax, and I ask for your vote on May the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Russo. Now I have opening remarks from Mr. Rogers, Walter Allen Rogers. You have a non-political background compared to some of these. Explain for us how you would bring a different approach into Cuyahoga County government.
Well, I don't have a political background, but I have the experience. I'm a veteran. If there's any veterans in here, they know before you go into battle, you organize, you plan. You know how many troops you have, you know how many tanks you have, you know your artillery, your air support, everything is on time. And you're good organizers, you're good planners because it's your life at hand. But you come out here, you can't get a job. If you have a particular war attached to your name, you can't get a job. I'm out here because downtown has its, they have their stadiums, they have all the things they want, all their little toys. There's nothing for the community. There's gunfire every other night in my neighborhood. The streets are bad. The kids have no idea as to where they want to go. They're not even thinking about going any place. So we must do something to increase education. We don't need more jails, we need better education. Education will take care of health. Education will limit the amount of crime that goes on. These are the things we need to really do, is the people. And the bottom line is, if we go into the schools and start to teach the first graders how to write, if they can write for 30 minutes, they will read for a couple hours. And if they read, the more they read, the more they get interested in what's going on in the world. So there's the key to everything, teaching our young children how to write, how to read, and that will take care of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Next to speak, opening remarks from Thomas O'Grady. Mayor, one of your talking points has been the concentration of development in downtown Cleveland as opposed to the suburbs. Why do you think this is not a good thing for the region?
Well, you know, it's an interesting question. It really wasn't my position, actually. But I would still address that in this manner. We have to understand that the suburbs, inner ring, outer ring suburbs, cannot survive without a thriving downtown. But much more importantly, a thriving downtown will not happen unless we have thriving neighborhoods right outside of downtown. And that's where my focus would be. I've got into this race because I believe unquestionably that I'm the best candidate. I know in my heart, I know that I can make the difference that we need to have. I was a career military officer. I retired medically in 1993. I was stationed overseas 3 times. I speak German and Japanese. I'm a graduate of Harvard University. The United States Army was kind enough to send me there, and I was assigned to the embassy in Tokyo. So I know that we should have a voice, not just regionally, not just in the state, but nationally and internationally. Thomas Friedman wrote this great book, The World is Flat. If we mark time for even a little bit, we fall behind, and we can't afford to do that. I would be a chief executive that would reach out for those opportunities and bring those opportunities back home. I was, when I left the military, I came out and I was in elective office. I was a lawmaker for 3 terms. I was the president of council in North Olmsted, and then I was the mayor. And as mayor, we made profound and serious change. We used intelligent reorganization. We thanked our wonderful employees, which needs to happen with the county employees, because they still feel the sting of this county scandal that is still hanging over their heads, but it wasn't their fault. And they are outstanding men and women, and they deserve our thanks for the jobs they do every day. But I would bring that change. And I have been a teacher. I've been a teacher of history and government. I'm currently a high school principal in Cleveland. So I assure you, every single day, I'm working with our most vulnerable, the most vulnerable population in our county. And I would not in any way reduce my efforts in the field of education. In business development, in education, I would be the person who would bring the greatest challenge and the greatest benefit to our county.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And lastly, we'll have opening remarks from Mr. Budish, Armond Budish. Sir, your campaign's been relatively low-key. You have, according to most accounts, the most money, the most endorsements. So the complaint's been that you're not allowing the public to get to know you well, despite the fact that you are an elected official. Should we expect a different Armond Budish to emerge should you win this nomination?
Thank you. Let me start by first thanking the City Club for holding this debate, and I'd like to commend all of my opponents for their public service over the years. That is truly important. Over the next hour, hopefully we'll have a good discussion about the future of the county. Unfortunately, we may also hear some personal attacks, and some tall tales aimed at tearing down fellow Democrats. Our county's been divided for too long. It's great to look out and see a diverse and a group out here that's together. That's what we need. To succeed, we need to be together as a county. That's what I've been doing over the last number of years. As Speaker of the House, my focus has been on job creation, economic development, and to do that, to accomplish what we were able to do, to accomplish getting the third frontier on the ballot so that we had funds for the startup businesses and entrepreneurs that we need for this state, to make sure that we had the film tax credit, putting people to work in this community as truck drivers and caterers and others supporting the film business, doing the Venture Capital Authority, expanding that so that we have support for the entrepreneurs in this state. All of that requires us to be together. As Speaker of the House, I had a Republican-controlled Senate that I had to work with, and we came together and we got things done. You did not see the dysfunction that you currently see in Washington, D.C. with a split government. We came together to solve the problems that face us. That's where I will come from as county executive. And you will see me all over the place. I've been out there one-on-one, meeting with individuals, meeting with voters for the last more than a year.
Thank you, sir. For this next round of questions, I'm going to ask one question that we will give each of the 6 candidates an opportunity to answer. They will have 1 minute to answer this question. I'll start with Mr. Budish, since you had to wait longest for the first turn. There was an interesting piece from Tom Byer in the Plain Dealer yesterday regarding Cuyahoga County being built out, blaming that as part of the reason we are sliding in population. Stopping the out-migration of Cuyahoga County would seem to be a key goal, but what can government or any elected official do to slow the population exodus? What would be your measure?
We need to bring jobs, we need to bring people back to Cuyahoga County. I have a 4-point plan. It's available on my website. We talk about job creation so that we'll have jobs for people to be here, to come to Cuyahoga County. That is critically important. We've got great strengths here in Cuyahoga County. We've got the Microsoft of healthcare. We have the Cleveland Clinic, we have university hospitals, we have Metro Health. Those institutions are spinning off innovations every day, new technologies, new medical equipment, new drugs. But we need to support the spin-offs so that they become businesses right here in Cuyahoga County. As we do that, as we support those businesses, whether it's through a venture capital authority of our own, where we're providing funds to support the entrepreneurs, the fact is that as we create good jobs, we can bring people to Northeast Ohio.
Thank you. Mr. O'Grady, how would you stop the population exodus?
It gets back to what I spoke of initially in my previous response. We have to reinvigorate our neighborhoods. We must do this. I would bring a very different perspective, a very different set of priorities than what currently exists in Cuyahoga County. Look at the new county headquarters building. We pay $6.2 million per year to rent this place, and after 26 years we're going to own it. But in that 26 years we paid $172 million for a building that we're going to get back when it's near its end of its useful life. You add to that the money that we lost on the purchase of the Ameritrust building and the mitigations that we did there for asbestos. That 172 plus another 25, you're at $200 million. The Opportunity Corridor on the east side, does that help the west side? No. Does it help the suburbs? No. Does it help the east side neighborhoods? No, it does not. It speeds traffic right through those neighborhoods. That's $311 million. That's $100+ million for every mile of what they do. If I had that 300 plus 200, if I had $500 million, we could make some changes in our neighborhoods.
Thank you, sir. Sheriff Reid.
Well, there's 2 or 3 issues. One is certainly jobs. If you read recently, 7,500 jobs are available in Cuyahoga County and the contiguous counties, and we don't have the people to fill them. As county executive, I would certainly have a liaison between the county executive's office and academia all through Cuyahoga County. We have some outstanding organizations, and we just don't have that connection today, I believe, that we should have in the future. Secondly, demolition of properties throughout Cuyahoga County. 12 to 15,000 of them. I suggested, just so we're clear, I suggested the $50 million bond issue back in May of last year, and now it's on the review by County Council. I would work with County Council every day on issues involving demolitions of properties throughout Cuyahoga County, and you know, that's one issue I think where I would be set apart from my opponents. Working with council, I did it my entire career, and I believe it's important that that's what we do, and I would do it from day one.
Thank you. Mr. Russo.
We need to end the rigged game that allows 3 billionaires to go to county council and get whatever they want, whenever they want, as fast as they want, and then put it in front of the voters for a rubber stamp of Art Modell's Chumps deal. That's the first thing. This rigged game has resulted in the birthplace of my mother, Slavic Village, and where I was born, being strip mined by Wall Street and every dollar taken out, to the point where now one of my opponents is saying, let's tear the damn neighborhood down. I think that's wrong. I think that's morally wrong. It's the result of a rigged game in which a guy like Armond Budish can go to the county and get $200,000 in no-bid county money, $25,000 a quarter, and then claim that he doesn't take a nickel out of it. The game is rigged, and people aren't going to move back to Cuyahoga County unless they see that the game is not rigged anymore. My last name is a punchline because of this kind of practice, and I want that practice to stop, and I want to end this rigged game, and that's why I ask for your vote on May the 6th.
There will be time for candidates to make references to things that were said about them later on in this discussion. Shirley Smith, what would you do to slow the population exodus?
Rick, I just want to clarify something, that I have the only real 4-point plan for prosperity. I just want to make that a point, and it's not full of platitudes, that it is a 4-point plan of prosperity. And to answer your question, I think that that's an issue that we have to deal with on multiple levels. When we're talking about people leaving Cuyahoga County, it's for 1 or 3 reasons. And one of the reasons is maybe for foreclosures, it could be for abandonments, or it could be for, excuse me, for people just wanting to find a different place to live. I find that most people that leave Cuyahoga County is for lower taxes, or for safety, or for just more room. And I think we'll have to incentivize people to stay here in Cuyahoga County, give them a reason to stay here in Cuyahoga County. There's no guess why there's 48% of the new housing being built outside of Cuyahoga County. There's a reason for that. There's no one-size-fits-all for the problem we're having with people leaving Cuyahoga County. When you're dealing with abandonments, you have to make sure that you include people like the land banks, maybe giving them more authority to do code violations, third-party tax liens. That's something that I have just introduced a new bill in Columbus. Thank you.
Yeah. And Mr. Rogers.
Yes. What I would do is, I'll just give you an example of one thing I would do too. One, we got to do something about the racism in this county. Another example is, if you have, I passed 4 vacant houses the other day. And there's people that could go in there and select one that's more stable than the others, tear down the others, and take the material from the others and build up the one house. And when that's finished, you put a family in there, and there's 2 votes, maybe 3 votes. That's how you stabilize. You just don't let the water keep running down the hill and off into nowhere. You have to build. You have to keep the streets clean. Do something for the people of this county, not those who got it all. Thank you.
Thank you. The Ohio Secretary of State has reduced early voting times in Ohio this year, enforcing decreases in both voting days and hours, and in some cases the number of voting booths. Some call it tacit suppression of Democratic voters. The current executive and council choose to consider implementations of their own rules for this county. That's the Cuyahoga County Voting Rights Law. I'd like to know from these candidates if they would continue the policy. Tell me why or why not, and what would you say to the Secretary when and if a pushback comes from Columbus? Senator, I'll start with you.
Rick, I would support any initiative that give people their right to vote. I support any initiative. But what I'm looking at today is infant mortality. The infant mortality rate in this county is higher than it is across the state. People are dying from preventable diseases, chronic diseases, comorbidities. There are 1 in 4 people that are obese. There is a disproportionate drug rate that's killing people. So when you talk about the issues that are important to the city, to the state, certainly voting is one of them. But we also have to deal with the chronic illnesses that face this county.
Thank you. Thomas O'Grady.
Well, you use the term tacit suppression. I don't think it's tacit at all. I think it's direct suppression of the voters. We go back in our history and we see some of the very darkest times in our histories where you had to, a certain population wasn't afforded an education, yet you had to come up and take an aptitude test before you were allowed to vote. Or a certain population didn't have the money that maybe other populations had, so they came up with poll taxes. Sure, you can come vote, but it's going to cost you. And that was really a very dark time. It's the same thing here. And it's not just the state of Ohio, but it is so fundamentally wrong and so goes so opposite to what the Founding Fathers and what the Constitution designed for us and wanted for us. This is wrong. It's an evil. I would continue to the very greatest extent possible to oppose it, and we need people to vote. We need to give them a voice in our government.
Thank you. Armond Budish.
Thanks. Our democracy depends on everybody having the right to vote, period. And these attacks on voting rights that are coming out of Columbus are outrageous. I will do everything I can. And I have been doing everything I can. As Minority Leader of the House, during the time when these attacks have been coming, I have gone around the state. I have debated the Republicans that are proposing these. I will do everything I can as county executive to stop these attacks on our voting rights. We had in the House a photo ID bill that passed the Ohio House. That is nothing more than a modern-day poll tax. It would require people to pay to vote. That is not acceptable. And I will tell you, if I'm county executive, we won't be able to stop what's going on in Columbus, but if they pass a photo ID bill, you will see photo ID machines to take people's photos everywhere you look in this county. And we will give people for free photo ID so they can vote.
Thank you. Walter Allen Rogers.
Well, they mess with the vote, then I believe we'll have a repeat of the 60s, and this time it'll be much different, and it'll be more successful, and it'll have a permanent outcome. We cannot stop the people from voting any shape, form, or fashion, and a lot of us fought, and a lot of us died, and a lot of us are still hurting for trying to vote.
Thank you. Tim Russo, would you fight back against Columbus?
I'd say see you in court. There's no way I would put up with that kind of attack on the vote. I worked in developing democracies abroad, 10 or 12 of them, for 2 years, watching these processes as they grew out of a rigged game there. And the reason these games get rigged is because of money. The reason you can go to the county council if you're Jimmy Haslam and get Art Modell's Chunks deal renewed is because you just throw a bunch of money around. The reason you can get a $200,000 no bid contract from the county and take $25,000 a quarter and claim that you're not taking a nickel out of it is because you have money. The game needs to be unrigged, and the first part is people need to re-engage in a process that they can trust, that they know isn't rigged, that they can go and vote in a system where they believe they can make a difference, and that's why I'm asking for your vote on May the 6th.
Thank you. And Mr. Reid.
Well, this is where I might be in a little opposition to my colleagues, my opponents. You know, my mother was a 4'10" Italian woman who took 2 buses to get to her union garment working job. My dad was a hardworking machinist that worked at National Acme, and my mom at Bobby Brooks. You know what? I remember when I was a kid that they would get up an hour early in the morning to make sure that they could get to the polls to make sure that they can vote. I just think that 34 days is is enough to vote in our community. I almost think it's borderline insulting to suggest to the community of color that they need more than 34 days to vote in an election. I don't agree on issues involving suppression of votes, but I would certainly have to review and look at those issues before I would decide to vote on an issue like that.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. We'll take a short break and hear from Hewitt. We'll be right back.
Today we are listening to a City Club debate among the county executive Democratic primary candidates. Armond Budish, Thomas O'Grady, Bob Reid, Walter Allen Rogers, Timothy Russo, and Shirley Smith, moderated by Rick Jackson. We will return to our debate momentarily for the traditional City Club question and answer period. To the audience, thank you in advance for framing your questions when we're ready to take them as questions, and please keep them brief and to the point. We welcome all of you here and those joining us via broadcast on WVIZ PBS, 90.3 WCPN, and 104.9 WCLV ideastream, WTAM, or one of our many broadcast partners across the country. Broadcasts of the City Club are made possible by Cleveland State University and PNC. Our live webcast is supported by the University of Akron. The City Club's Politics and Policy program is sponsored by the Northeast Ohio Media Group. Today we welcome guests at tables hosted by several community partners, too many to list here. Please refer to your printed program for the list. Thank you for all of your support. To learn more about the City Club, our upcoming programs, to make a reservation, or to order a CD or DVD on today's forum, visit our website, cityclub.org. Now I will turn the program back to Rick for the audience question and answer portion of the debate. Holding the microphones today are City Club Program Director Carrie Miller and Marketing and Outreach Specialist Kirsten Pianka. Rick.
Thank you, Hewitt. Audience questions. It's open to the floor. I have more, but we want to hear from you. Let's begin over here.
Yes. The older I get, the more I hear politicians talk about education. Everyone's in favor of better education. Now, our educational system is essentially run by the cities, not by the county. What authority, what can you do if you are elected to this position with the county to help education in our cities?
Would you like to hear from all of the candidates or one in particular? All of them? Mr. Rogers, I'll start with you, sir.
I do believe the city reports to the county and the county reports to the governor. So if I read it correctly, the county has some say-so in the process of the education in this county. The thing that has to be done is that we have to increase the quality. We have good teachers there. I'm in the school system from time to time, but we have very good teachers, and we just have to really, as they say, put the pedal to the metal and get these kids educated, and that can be done. And that's what's going to change everything, is when we have a group of children coming out who are educated. Thank you.
Thank you. Timothy Russo.
Funding is the key here, and I would take a lot of the money that's going from the county to a bunch of economic development slush funds, and I would target it to many things, like teachers, like doctors, like nurses in places that are underserved. For example, why are we voting on $260 million to go to 3 billionaires for their sports stadiums? When I drove down here, some of these roads are like when I was training political parties in Kosovo. That's just one thing. You can see it right under your car. You're mentioning teachers. If I had $260 million, how many teachers do you think I could hire over 20 years? If I had $260 million, how many doctors do you think I could put into the inner city where this infant mortality issue is a stain on this country, not let alone this city? Our priorities have to change. We have to govern ourselves. We should not let money govern us, and that's why I'm asking for your vote on May the 6th.
Thank you. Senator Shirley Smith.
I think that the city and the county has done a wonderful job in making sure that more young kids get into, or children get into preschool or early education, and I would continue that. The only thing I would do differently is make sure we had measurable outcomes. But when you place kids in early education, it gives them a great foundation on which to learn and grow.
Mr. Reid.
Well, here, first, as you know, and the gentleman's question is, how did the county get involved in issues involving education? Well, by charter, we have an issue involving scholarships. And here's where, again, I would differ from the existing organization, is I would have worked with county council from day one in issues involving the scholarship program. I think it was brought to them at the 11th hour to make a decision on the scholarship program, where we set up a kindergarten program where you put $100 into the kindergarten program. It's a, you know what, it's a D+, maybe a C-. But at the end of the day, why wouldn't we work with Tri-C College? Why wouldn't we work with one of these jewels that we have in Cuyahoga County, to work with them for a scholarship program? It's happened all over the United States. The state of Tennessee, $34 million to actually subsidize community college, 2-year subsidy program to a community college. That's what I would do as county executive, and I would work very close with county council to come up with a better plan.
Thank you. Armond Budish.
Education is key to our future in this county and everywhere. And we need to do whatever we can. So let me give two suggestions. First, early childhood. The experts all agree early childhood education is critical to putting our kids on the right path for the future. There are some good early childhood education programs right now in this county. We need to support them and enhance them as a county. Second is post-secondary. The fact is that right now the high costs of post-secondary, of college, block out many people who would like to go, who otherwise would go to school. The city of Pittsburgh came up with a program which they call the Pittsburgh Promise, where they brought organizations and people together. They brought the foundations and the University of Pittsburgh and the government together, and they are making it possible for every child who wants to go to school to go to college regardless of their income. We can do that here. We're better than Pittsburgh.
You know, I was born there. Of course, I've been here since the 80s, so what's that say? Mr. O'Grady.
Which football team do you like better?
I'm not answering that. Go ahead.
All right, good call. My son's getting married in July, and he's marrying a girl from Pittsburgh, so it's kind of a mixed marriage there. You got the Steelers and the Browns.
I'm in one of those too.
Two helmets. First of all, I'm there every day. I'm a former teacher. Last 4 years, I've been a high school principal. I was at Max Hayes for 2 years. I'm in my second year at the wonderful Rhodes High School. It's important to understand that the county is not in the direct chain of command. In the city of Cleveland, which is rare in our state, Cleveland, the city government's in charge of the city schools, but in the dozens of other districts throughout the county, they're separate governmental agencies, each of the districts. Now, a collaboration among them, I think that would be a wonderful thing. Encouraging regionalism and encouraging synergy, working together to do more with less. That's one of the things we can do. But a more direct need, when I see our students, our kids in Cleveland, is hunger. It's fear, it's crime, it's not having the tools they need. They're not looking for a handout, they're looking for a hand up. And in that way, the county and our social services can work directly with the schools and with the city of Cleveland to make a difference in all the school districts in the county.
Thank you. Gary?
I've been told that there are 50,000 jobs in Cuyahoga County, and that I believe that we have a partnership in Cuyahoga County with the prison systems in the state of Ohio. There are people with masters and PhDs who are trying to find jobs in casinos. My question is this: it seems like you can't find a job unless you are connected. What can we do to make sure that we lower the numbers of people going to prison, and those who are educated, because just because you're educated doesn't mean you can do a job, that they are able to find jobs in Cuyahoga County and negate this 50,000 number?
Mr. Russo, you haven't been first in any question. Go right ahead.
Well, you're going to be surprised to hear me say that the game is rigged, and that's why no one's getting any jobs. Okay, you know, nobody's mother dreamed of their child going to school and graduating with a degree and then waiting tables or dealing cards at the casino. This game has to stop being rigged, and I'll give you an example. We talked about Pittsburgh there for a minute. Do you know what the Pittsburgh Steelers pay for rent on their stadium? $2.5 million. Do you know what the Vikings pay? $13 million. The 49ers pay $25 million in rent. The Browns pay $250,000. Now, because the game is rigged, these billionaires get to go right to county council, get their Art Modell's chump steal syntax put right on the ballot, no questions asked. And we don't even get to talk about, hey, wait a minute, maybe we should make the rent a little higher. I got a couple of ideas on this. I'd like to raise the rent, and I'd like to share in the advertising revenue of these scoreboards we're paying for. But that's one way we can start at the very core issue. The system has to stop being rigged. That's why I'm asking for your vote on May the 6th.
Mr. Reid.
Well, you know what? A 2,000 population jail that I was in charge of, a daily population, a 78% recidivism rate is disgusting. And you know what, as sheriff, what I did is I introduced a number of different programs, actually in opposition to the 87 other sheriffs all over the state of Ohio, where we stopped sending 6-month to 1-year prisoners down to the state penitentiary. Because you know what was happening? They were coming back to Cuyahoga County with a badge on them saying, you know what, I've got a number. We stopped that. What we did is we worked with the 34 judges in Cuyahoga County and said, what can we do to take those 100 prisoners and keep them here in Cuyahoga County? And and what we did is, you know what? We kept them here, and we were only getting $3 or $4 a day from the prison system. Cost us $78 a day to house these prisoners. But we introduced programs. We were the first sheriff's office to give the GED, not just the classes, but to give the GED test in jail. We had a captive audience. So you know what? We knew that they would take the classes, but they would never go outside the institution and take the test. So we were the first sheriff's office in the state of Ohio to give the GED test in the jail itself. And we will continue to do those things if I become county executive.
That's your time. Mr. Rogers, how do you connect the jobs to the people who need them?
By setting up some offices in the communities. The people that really need the jobs are not the people downtown or not the multimillionaires, but it's the people out there in the neighborhoods. The people, the mothers and fathers who see their sons go off to war and come back messed up, and then they get blamed for what goes on. What we need to do is be out there in the neighborhood. If I can quickly tell you, I was in Bedford-Stuyvesant, which is in Brooklyn, New York. They put an art gallery on the corner of New York and Nostrand. And people went in to see the art, and they also found out there was a dance theater, there was a theater, all kinds of programs, because they had went throughout the neighborhood and renovated empty buildings so they could be put to use. And now you have to be a millionaire to live in Bed-Stuy. At the time I was there, it was a war zone. Thank you.
Ms. Smith.
Bishop Ward, my 4-point plan of prosperity answers that question. But I will say to you that when people get out of prison, they have a host of issues that need to be dealt with holistically. You cannot come out and train a person and then expect them to go to an employer that they don't have the skill sets for. We are training people just with arbitrary skill sets. We have to make sure that we train those people for jobs that meet a dynamic jobs market. We have to make sure we give them those skill sets, and we have to make sure that we give them housing and clothing and medical needs, all the needs that they need, not just a job. A job won't do it. So I don't know about the 50,000 that you talked about. I'm sure it's not really that high, but once you train a person for the job that we have in the area, I'm sure that we can fill that need.
Mayor O'Grady.
You know, the original question brought up the issue of prisons, and we've spoken about what to do when people are coming out of prison, but we ought to speak first about what we're doing to get so many people into prison in the first place. And the fact of the matter is, it's money. When we privatize prisons, It's the big people with the big dollars that go to the representatives in Columbus or they go to the representatives in Washington, and they make their contributions, and when those guys pay the piper does the show. And the result is that you privatize prisons, and all of a sudden it's really a good idea to put more people in there because they make more money. Charter schools the same way. When I was with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I was talking to a mayor from Florida, and he was singing their praises, and I'm saying, we don't even test those children. They're not working in Ohio, and it turned out again it was the money. If we have for-profit schools, it's the money that messes it up. If we have for-profit prisons, the money messes it up. We got to do things up front. I hate to say this out loud, but I agree with Mr. Russo. The system's rigged, and we gotta go at it a different way.
There you go. Mr. Budish.
Sorry to hear you say that. Reentry is a critical issue, and we really have to give people a second chance, a real second chance, and that requires giving them the training and education so that they can get one of those jobs. And I want to take a moment to commend Senator Smith for her work in the reentry field in the legislature. She's done a very good job there. Two suggestions. One, I've already talked to President Alex Johnson at Tri-C. We've talked about the possibility of putting a Tri-C satellite right at the Justice Center to give people the training that they need before they're released from prison. And a second suggestion made by one of your colleagues, Reverend Matthews. His suggestion, among others, was to have a WPA-type program, a public works program, where we're putting people to work, we're giving them the training, they're rebuilding our infrastructure, they're rebuilding the homes that have been foreclosed on, and we're giving them a skill that they will have for life.
Thank you. Boy, it goes fast when you have 6 people to answer each question. I will now give a closing question. Each candidate will have 90 seconds in this case to make their remarks, answer the question, make any closing remarks they have. Mr. O'Grady is going to go first based on our drawing earlier prior to this beginning. The question, the county is committed to spending at least $5 million to attract the GOP National Convention or the Democrats if we fail to get the GOP to Cleveland. Are you supportive or against the spending of public money in that way, and why? Mr. O'Grady, you're first.
I've spoken before about the hundreds of millions of dollars that have gone to special projects, the Opportunity Corridor benefits very few. It doesn't do much for the rest of us. And these kind of things, I'm very skeptical. We need to take a look at not those who have the most and have the most to gain by bringing in such an event. We have to look at those who have the most to lose. And we have not, as a government in the county and the cities, et cetera, we have not been doing enough, and we need to go in that direction. As I see the time is running out, before I finish, I did want to speak about the sin tax. People have said the sin tax is, it's a terrible name, but it's a perfect name. And it's not because the people of Cuyahoga County are sinners, it's because the tax is a sin. When you have millionaires playing ball for billionaires and then you expect the average citizen to subsidize this, it's wrong. Now, lots of money is being spent to promote this thing, but it's wrong. I would ask the people of Cuyahoga County to defeat this thing. Vote against Issue 7, defeat it. Let us bring it back to the negotiating table and get a fair deal for our residents. Oh, and by the way the sin tax was created, it was created only so it can do one thing. It was created to benefit only sports venues, large sports venues. We need to get that changed, and that's a change that can come from Columbus, and it should have initially, and allow us that should we be raising money, should we be raising it that way, that we're able to use it for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas O'Grady. Bob Reid.
Yeah, what I'd really like to do is see the balance sheet from some of these communities, Charlotte and others, that have had the Republican National Convention, Democratic National Convention, see what they spend for law enforcement, big deal, and I know they're subsidized. But to answer the question directly, I'm in favor of it. I think it shines a great light on the city of Cleveland, what we've tried to accomplish over the last 4 or 5 years. That momentum certainly needs to continue, but I'd certainly like to look at the balance sheet as well. To just summarize, my position. As county executive, you're in charge of a $1.3 billion budget. 31 union bargaining units, 15 separate divisions. It is a monster. And it's not for individuals that need on-the-job training. I had the largest division in the county as county sheriff with 1,100 employees, a $92 million budget. County city manager for over 10 years. You know what? I've got that background. Unfortunately, and with all due respect to my opponents, many of them at this table in the private sector would not get an interview for this job. You have to have a background. You have to have someone that you know, president of the union, to deal with unions, to deal with all of the issues. I was there as county sheriff. We were successful at doing it. Took for a $3.5 million deficit and reduced that deficit and brought 18 laid-off deputies back in 1 year. I'm ready for the job. January 1st, 2015, I'll hit the street running. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob Reid. Shirley Smith.
I understand the benefits of the bringing in the convention to the city. I understand how the ancillary businesses benefit, but I also understand that there are 59 other communities around us that need our help. So if we work just as hard to make good of those cities that are around us, the municipalities, as we do bringing convention centers in to help the other ancillary businesses, then I think that I have done the job of a county executive. I would also like to say that on May 6th, if you ask yourself, why, if your life could be any better, is my life going to be any better if I vote for you? I just want you to know that my 4-point plan of prosperity answers that question. Yes, your life will be better if you vote for Shirley Smith on May 6th.
Thank you. Spending to attract the convention. Armond Budish.
I'm a strong supporter. I believe that a Republican or a Democratic National Convention will bring big dollars to this community, and it's not the community. I mean, who we're talking about? We're talking about people who work in restaurants, people who work in hotels. We're talking about the dishwashers. We're talking about taxi drivers. These are the people who benefit if we bring in a national convention. That is a big deal for Cuyahoga County. When you started, Mr. Jackson, you talked about me being low-key, and some people think that. Not the Republicans in the state legislature, but some people think that. We need a county executive that will be a fighter for all of us. And we need an executive that's going to fight for workers' rights. I led the fight against Senate Bill 5, and I will lead the fight against right to work when it comes down next year. We need an executive that'll fight for women's rights. I've done that as the House Democratic leader, and I'll do that as county executive. And we need an executive that will fight for voters' rights and against the attacks on our democracy that are coming down almost daily. As county executive, I will do everything I can to preserve our right to vote. Thank you. Thank you,
Armond Budish. Tim Russo.
Armond Budish didn't fight when it came to the syntax. He rolled over and played dead. He endorsed it before he even saw it. This is Art Modell's Chumps deal. Let's remember that. This is what we had to beg Art Modell for to keep the Browns here, and then the day before the election, he skipped town. The syntax is immoral, and it's a Chumps deal, and it's the legacy of Art Modell, and it should be defeated. Regarding the Republican convention, I met a guy at a bingo game the other day, and he says, you know, just look at the potholes, and there goes your convention. I don't know who would come to this town if the streets look like a bombed-out post-Soviet republic. We make choices as government. We have to choose between priorities that matter to the most, to the public, and priorities that matter to private interests whose only interest is profit. You know, nobody said, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for profit. They said, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice. Well, I will fight for justice for Cuyahoga County. I think I have a unique capacity to see and fight injustice and a unique capacity to smell a rat based on all of my experience, going back to the days when I was born in Slavic Village. I'm a Clevelander through and through, and I look forward to asking for your vote on May the 6th. And by the way, I'm not related to Frank.
Timothy Russo. And lastly, with closing comments, Walter Allen Rogers, Jr.
Well, before I forget, don't forget to vote for me. We'll have we'll have a lot of action. And the thing people don't want to talk about, they don't want to talk about how racist this county is. And if word got out, nobody's going to bring anything here. And I'm on the verge of leaving. If I left, nobody would say a word. But I'm an internationally known artist. My work is all over the world. But nobody cares. Not in Cleveland, they don't care. You see? So I'm out there in the streets with these children, with the people. I see it. I don't see any of you out there in the streets. There's a few of you will be out there in the streets, but not like, and the few that know, they know how I'm out there in the streets. And you elect any of these people along here, except me, elect me, and the rest of them, nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same old business. People are going to be going hungry. There'll be gunfire every other night. And there's a gang in East Cleveland called the Taliban. Did any of you know that? That's the mentality of our young people. It's becoming tragic and more tragic. Once again, I stress to start to teach the children how to write. If they can write, they can read. Thank you.
Thank you. City Club and I would like to thank all of the candidates, all 6, for participating. Please remember, as I've told you, Election Day is May 6th. Hewitt?
Thank you, Rick Jackson, for moderating today's forum. Thank you, candidates, for participating. This forum is now adjourned.